All right, family, it's your brother Assad.
And I'm Adrian.
And we are back again with another quick video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so that you'll be notified when we drop new videos and new content on this channel. Second, in terms of housekeeping, we want to make sure we thank our South African family for all the love and support that you guys have shown this channel, myself, and by default, my wife and my family, my children, and all that good stuff. You guys are the best. And everybody else that supports this channel, we really appreciate it. So today we have a special guest, right? So all over these YouTube streets, we see that South Africa is really starting to pop, and certain names are just popping up. Bam, 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 bam. So I saw this sister's name pop up. In fact, tell you a story before we get into the actual interview. A few months ago, or maybe November, I was looking at YouTube and I saw a video of this sister speaking about her experience in South Africa, along with another brother named Julian Albino. And he was speaking about his experience in South Africa. So I decided to do a little video about how I felt about South Africa and not feeling Black and what that meant, how I felt like an individual and the James Baldwin, Jimmy Sense, and I can explain that later. But anyway, so this sister's video inspired that video, and that became my little YouTube hit off in these streets. You know, so I am platinum hit, hot boy, neighborhood superstar. So I am super duper excited to have this sister on. I will let her introduce herself. But just know that this sister's phenomenal and spent a lot of time on the continent, and she has a love for South Africa like we have a love for SA. So, Ashley?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Assad and Adrian, for having me on your channel. Hey, everyone. Hey, South African family. My name is Ashley in Africa. On my channel, I talk about all things moving, living, and doing business on the continent of Africa. Yeah. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man, we are happy to have you.
So happy to have you.
Yeah. So tell us, Ashley, what we know that most Black Americans may not have this keen interest in visiting the continent. There are many, right? But what led you to say, I need to get to the continent? And when did you first go?
Yeah, so it's surprising to me that there is this like not only lack of interest, but like a disinterest in our community to travel to the continent. And I know that there's many reasons for that, but you know, specifically me, I was heavily in my career, like, you know, most Black Americans, mid-30s, you know, had kids and a family, just kind of doing the same rigmarole day in, day out. Like many people, when this global health experience happened at the top of 2020,
right.
I was just forced to shut everything down and have like just this serene experience of stillness that I had never had before. And in that moment, I really, you know, was just able to reflect on what was really important to me, what mattered, and what I wanted my life to look like. And I knew that at the time, regardless of, you know, the 6-figure paying salary and the gated community and the, you know, nice cars and flashy things, it just wasn't what I knew my life was meant to look like long term. I had traveled a lot. I traveled to, I think, over a dozen countries at the time. And when all those like shutdowns started to happen and Americans were not able to travel, I didn't like that feeling. I was like, hold up, like, what's this about? I do not like this. And there were only a few countries open. So I had been laid off of work. My kids were out of school. They were, you know, doing virtual schooling. So I was just like, and everybody was staying away from each other. So I was like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that somewhere where I can put my feet in the water. So started looking at Florida, you know, that was real iffy because of restrictions. Started looking at Jamaica, had been familiar with traveling there, had some friends and family. And ironically, I had a friend who at the time really wasn't a close friend. Her and I had done some work together. But she had been documenting her experience on IG of being in Jamaica. So I reached out to her just to make sure that all the protocols weren't too like astringent for me to travel there. And she's like, yeah, we're here, but we're actually planning to go to Tanzania. And I was like, where's that? Like, she's like, planning to go to Africa. And yeah, like that's where we're going. We're just waiting to get a flight out. So she had been in Tanzania for probably about 2 weeks, showing her experience on IG. She and her husband and her 10-year-old son at the time. And she is a creative, so the pictures look beautiful, but also like she had never been. Her first time going out of the country was to Jamaica. So I was like, if she can do that, I could totally do it.
Right.
And yeah, so she had, after seeing her document her experience, I probably decided like 2 months later, 3 months later, and booked the flight.
Wow.
And packed our bags. Yeah.
That's brave. That's brave.
Tanzania.
I want to go back just a bit because I'm noticing a trend with a lot of people that I speak to about South Africa. It is Black folk who we would identify, categorize, and catalog as successful. I heard you mention the gated community, the 6-figure income. I just had lunch with a brother and a sister. He's a dentist and the wife is an MD.
Yeah.
You know, other individuals who are into IT and who are very successful. But these are the people that are saying, no. A sitting judge, right?
Yeah.
A sitting judge, 2 sitting judges who are saying that they, that no, the United States is not it. They are, you know, you would look at them and say, man, you're successful. You have the money.
Why is it not it?
Well, why are you saying this? So it's this thread. It's like, man, even when you have followed the so-called path to success, right? Some folk will look at us and say we're successful, but we're very poor. We ain't got no money. I like to make that known. But when you have followed the path to success and you still say the pressure of the United States is just far too much for me to handle, I think it's important to point that out because it's not like the individuals who are like downtrodden or whatever who are saying, I need to escape the US. It's those who probably live a very comfortable life and are still saying, this ain't it. But back to, so now you're in Tanzania for how long were you there?
I was there for a year.
Wow. So what was that like?
It was life-changing. It was very spiritual, very peaceful, serene. It definitely, stretched my ability to be, a lot of patience, just in adapting to a new culture. I will say this is something that I share with a lot of people because I'm just now able to put it into words now being back in the US, recognizing that, Black women in America don't have the advantage of really being full-fledged in their femininity. And,
Wow. No, I just think that's such an amazing insight because I felt similarly when I was there and
we
was
don't
with
really
other women and did that. They were just like full feminine. It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
don't feel full. Like, I thought I wanted you. What the hell is going on? We need to talk.
But the US can harden you in a way.
It has. You have to. I mean, you're forced to just be a doer, be a goer. Like you're not allowed to just be. And so there, I was able to just be. I was encouraged to just be. I was like called out when I wasn't just being. And I learned really how to like harness and was reminded really, right, of like what it meant to just be in my femininity. And that came with a lot of that peace. It came with a lot of that patience. It came with, just a lot of that, Adrienne, what I'm talking about.
That's hard to
Because
explain, but
it
yeah.
is, it's really hard to explain, but because I got to see other women be in that,
Yeah.
like, we can get into that later, but just, I think y'all have spoken on it before, just where you're allowed to have, it's a cultural dynamic to have live-in or full-time house help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so as a working woman, like, what? We can't afford that if we wanted to. I mean, having someone come clean a couple times a month is a luxury that is still very like expensive. So I had a neighbor who her husband was a banker and she was a stay-at-home mom and she had two like house helpers. And she was able to be, they would invite me over for dinner, invite me over for their birthday parties. And she was just able to be that full-time wife and that full-time mom to her children and just be so nice and endearing and compassionate. And like, those are the things that we're told we need to be as good women, good wives, good partners, but it's really a challenge to be that and be, even if you are like a stay-at-home mom, just some of the stuff that you have to deal with on a day-to-day, raising children, interacting with teachers, interacting with these institutions. It doesn't really allow the woman to be that way. And so that's the number one thing that I took away from the experience in Tanzania. But I mean, it's such a vast country. We were able to spend time in Zanzibar, able to spend time in Kilimanjaro foothills. We didn't make it to the Serengeti, but just like the waterfalls, the nature, the safari, it was just a lovely experience.
I actually, while I was joking, there is so much credibility to what you guys are saying. Gerd Hofstadter was an organization, he just passed maybe 2 years ago, an organizational psychologist who examined different cultures. This is going to be a lot, but I'm going to bring it back to what I'm saying. There's always a lot, but I think deep. So he was hired by IBM in the 70s as IBM was becoming the first like multinational global corporation, right? He was hired by IBM to see, when we set up offices in maybe Japan or Asia, or wherever have you, how should these offices be set up? So he came up with 7 dimensions of culture, maybe 5, and then expanded to 7. But one of those dimensions was masculinity versus feminine, right? Or masculine versus feminine cultures. And the United States was classified as a hyper masculine culture, right? Just the way it has nothing to do with like masculine features or anything. It's just the way the culture works. It's fast paced, it's hard working. It is not as caring and what's the word? Nurturing, right? Right, as other nations. So even when I came back, when we were in South Africa a couple of weeks ago, I just felt different. I felt softer. And, I don't never feel soft. Let me find out. No, I felt freer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt freer. And then when we came back home, she mentioned, she was like, "You're much sweeter when we were in South Africa." But it's because you have to come here. I'm in fight mode, from the moment I wake up to the moment I lay down. It's fight time. It's move. It's get it. I got to fight the world. I got to worry about if these folk gonna kill my children, or that's real. I mean, like these crazy people running around with AK-47s, and I ain't even talking about the police. So it's all of that. I got to make sure that I'm on guard as I walk out of my door. So that doesn't, the culture doesn't allow for that time to be as caring and as I don't want to use the word soft. We got to find another word to describe this. But
yeah, but it's slower, and then you have time to enjoy those very little things that make life really special. Like Ashley alluded to it, but I would be invited over so that my friend could make muffins.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we're gonna make muffins and just sit around and have girl talk, little stuff like that. That it's you know, I don't have time to do it in the States.
Right, right.
It's just it's so go 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 that it's like, okay, well, we can catch up and go have dinner somewhere, and it's
Right.
very quick. But just to spend a day and then have people come and bring food to your doorstep, you know, like fresh fish that was just caught,
Yeah.
and we actually spend quality time preparing meals together, or
Mhm.
just things like that, you know, buying flowers from the guy in the corner on your way home,
Right.
just really beautiful things like that. But
Yeah.
anyhow,
Leisure
Right.
is allowed. Like leisure is a part of life
Right.
right.
there. And I don't know that it's necessarily like just on the continent, but I do know that Africans have a family-centered culture. So they value family. Children are important. Children represent the future. Like in reality, they don't just say it, they mean it. They're our greatest technology. So they're fostered. And yeah, like that's a part of the DNA of African that makes everything else around it. The family is important. So the woman, I learned there in Tanzania, they told me that the mother, like the respect that you have for your mother is the respect that you should have for God. Like mothers are held
Mm.
second to God and just revered, and totally opposite in a society where, you know, maternal not life rates are super high and there aren't universal practices for like maternity leave. I mean, even in those really black and white ways, that is a clear contrast to what it means to be family centered. And
Mm.
so, you know, I was sold after that.
Sold on the continent. All right. So you're in Tanzania. How do you end up in SA? How do you end up in South Africa?
Yeah. So while I was on the continent, I was still very much, you know, staying connected with all of the YouTube resources that led me there. So my friends that I mentioned, they're on YouTube as Witness Our Divine. But some of the other creators that I would watch were, you know, Wode Maya, African Tigress, Black Sit, um, you know, so many. And The Real South Africa was also one. And I had always wanted to go to South Africa. Like that was on my bucket list, Cape Town. And now being on the continent, I was like, I gotta make it happen. And ended up coming across their channel, saw that they provided a resource. They were a familiar face. So I felt like, okay, you know, I can rock with this. They're providing a service. Like, let me, you know, let's do it. And I was able to take the time because my girls were in school. I had house help. I also moved to Tanzania with my mom. So I had a family unit and I wanted to do a discovery trip because at that point I hadn't made the decision, but I was like, I want to see more of the continent. And if there is another place where we may feel, you know, like it could feel more permanent, I wanted to explore that. And I knew that Johannesburg was like the financial center of the continent. I knew that the infrastructure was there. From like economic perspectives, they had their own stock exchange. So I was like, okay, let's see what that's looking like. And yeah, also very, you know, quick and easy decision where I was like, oh, I've got a couple weeks. They're going to be out of school. They can stay with their grandma and the house, you know, our Dada, which was, we would affectionately call her our house helper, would stay and support her for 2 weeks, which turned into 4 weeks. So yeah, I decided to make a trip down and I spent time in Joburg and Durban.
Man, how did you convince your mom to go to Tanzania? That's the question. Because I'm trying to convince my mom. What you told her? Told her Jesus was there?
Well, I had her watch a couple of the videos that I was watching. It took a while. I honestly, hindsight, like I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend trying to convince anybody of what Africa has to offer because you really have to not only want to do it, have the will to do it, but have the will to push through the challenges that come, because there will be challenges, right? It's not very easy for, you know, Americans to make this journey, as it isn't for others to migrate and become immigrants in foreign countries. It's a process, and it takes some like serious grit. But I struggle now with it. If people have an interest, I'm happy to share, but I'm no longer like in the business of trying to convince people of the fact that there are better options for them.
So
you know, I'm just being honest.
absolutely. Can we do a comparison and contrast? Because we've been to Tanzania too, but I want to hear your comparison and contrast between Dar and Johannesburg, you know, first impressions and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'm like I'm formally trained as an economist, but so I love data, trends, research, all that stuff. So what I loved about Dar was, you know, it's young population, rich for talent development, the amount of infrastructure and development that is happening there, and the growth of the economy. Um, the cost of living, you know, was fantastic. The access to the beach, the beautiful Indian Ocean, but also like the Serengeti and Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, that is just breathtaking. And then because it's not a but, there's just so different. South Africa, when I went to South Africa, it was literally because I was missing the modern luxuries of, you know, going to having, you know, a meal that wasn't like Swahili food that was really good, and or going to you know, a beautiful spa. Not to say that Dar didn't have these things, but the familiarity, the ability to go to a store and buy clothes that weren't secondhand, or weren't what's the word when they're not proper, like there's something wrong with them, you know, from China.
Yeah, right,
Like
right.
the only clothes that were coming into Tanzania most of the time were secondhand or cheaply made Chinese clothing. But I did love like the custom Katenge cloth, like clothes that I got made there too. But you know, just having kids, growing kids, they outgrow stuff. Just all of those things that I really did enjoy about my life in the US, I was missing like those little small modern luxuries. I will say South Africans that I met were like a lot more globally exposed. So like global citizens had lived not only all over the continent, but in Europe and North America. The amount of just exposure and intellect was global, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just based in their country of origin. So like, you know, meeting somebody to speak like several languages is super common in South Africa versus Tanzania. Most people only speak Swahili, or if they're in tourism, they may speak Russian, uh, German, and then like, you know, maybe English. But the
Yeah.
native languages, speaking multiple native languages, I love that. Um, what else? I think, you know, South Africa is a lot more diverse, you know, so like larger populations of a diverse communities take
Yeah.
that, you know, good or bad, but it did feel a lot more just familiar coming
Houston,
from
Atlanta, Vegas.
the West. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so, like very much and safe. Like Tanzania, very safe, one of the safest countries I think in the world. And I felt very safe in Johannesburg and Durban. I traveled solo when I was there. So you know, use wisdom, use caution. I've lived in some of the most dangerous cities in America. So
Yeah.
I know how to how to move and
Yeah.
I know how to have awareness. But safe, people were friendly, welcoming, like people also looked out like, okay, well, you good. So but the people I say in both places were lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That safety thing, you know, we did a live Sunday talking about this safety thing, and it's strange because I brought up the top 50 most dangerous countries in the world. Johannesburg happened to be on there, but it was cities. What did I say?
Countries.
Oh, cities in the world.
Yep.
And Johannesburg happened to be on there. It was number 40. However, it was its first year on there because it was off for like the last 2, maybe 3 years. So it was on there number 40. However, American cities did not start making the list, I believe, until the top 20, right? So you get to, so all of the dangerous, you know, cities are, you know, obviously New Orleans is one of them, Memphis, and then you start seeing numbers in St. Louis. It's like, man, St. Louis is a whole war zone. And Adrian pointed out, if you tell people, hey, I'm going to South Africa, then be careful, it's dangerous.
Yeah. Oh
Be
my
careful.
God.
But if you say you're going to St. Louis, they be like, oh man, have a good time, man. If you run
Right.
into Nelly,
Turn up. When Atlanta, turn up. Like,
yeah,
Right.
it's like, no. People, New Orleans is gets what, 18 million, 20 million tourists a year, and we are like, you know, one of always top 5, top 6 of the most dangerous cities in the United States. Always. That's just how we rock, you know. So it's just very strange how they have this stigma on South Africa as being so dangerous, but it's, and you know, it's not. And then you look at like the crimes that are committed, you know, like someone jacking your cell phone, you know.
right.
And also, not to over talk, but also the perception that I have that has to change when I come from the United States to like Johannesburg. So here, if I'm seeing a group of young brothers, I'm definitely on it. They 16, 17, 21, I'm on guard. I'm paying close attention because I need to know what's going on because I don't know. You know, I hate to be, you know, I hate to stereotype, but that's the reality that we live in.
Yes, it is.
But you know, coming walking down in Rosebank or whatever have you, see group E, I had to turn that off. And then after a day or two, you realize, oh no, these brothers going on about their business. They, you know, it's certain things you have to turn off. Again, that's back to that masculine culture where you're always on guard. Yeah. So you're in Johannesburg.
So you were there, you went for 2 to 4 weeks, and then
I was
did
there
you,
for 4 weeks. Yes.
and then
Okay.
you went back to Tanzania after that?
Okay. All right.
Huh.
So when the people, tell me about your experience with the South African people.
It was a great experience, super positive. I stayed in Rosebank when I was in Joburg, and yeah, like, you know, went to the mall. Someone says hello. Can I get your WhatsApp? Was at a restaurant. Someone says hello. Can I get your WhatsApp? Like, I mean, I met so many people that I still communicate with today. There was the saying like, oh, good luck not meeting people, because that was one of my reasons for going. Like, I was like, I want to be social. I want to be in the places where like I'm going to meet people. And, you know, the Blanches were like, good luck not meeting anyone. And so I didn't meet, like, you know, in Tanzania, I did spend a good amount of time with like Americans and like diasporans from the UK, so foreigners. And I had some, but like a very small group of like Tanzanian friends. But in South Africa, like I didn't even have an opportunity to meet any non-South African. Like it was just you know, very welcoming, very like, you know, interested in like, well, why are you here? You know, why I want to go to America. Like that's my dream one day. And I had to like pull back on discouraging our brothers and sisters from visiting, but really do like affirming the value in the country that they have, and just what is there for them that isn't there for them here.
Isn't this strange? Like we come as outsiders and you just see all of the opportunity. You see all of the greatness that Johannesburg and South Africa really has. And you listen to them, they're like, oh no, we want to go to the United States. I'm discouraging. I'm like, no, you don't want to go there. You're gonna end up in the projects.
I had to
Struggling.
learn to not do that because people was discouraging me to come there, right? So
True.
like my experience might not be your experience. And you've talked about that, how Africans, come to America and they sometimes can do really well
Oh,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
sometimes have a privilege of being known for being, more diligent, more educated, more hardworking than a Black American. And the privileges exist on the other side for us going there as Americans. And I
That's true.
recognize that too. But I will say that America is has done one of the best marketing campaigns for the last several hundred years to convince the world that it is, this place of bright lights and, big money,
Yeah.
where we know that that is just not the case today.
I mean, it is a phenomenal marketing machine. I was watching, I forget his name, but he ended up in Rwanda because he was watching a Wodi Maya video. He saw a Wodi Maya video, and he and his mother decided to move to Rwanda. Right. So now he has his own YouTube channel. And I'm sorry, I can't forget. I forget the brother's name, but anyway, he was showing Rwandans like homeless people in the United States, and they were just blown away. Like, they have homeless people in the United States. It's just like this marketing campaign has really convinced the world that the United States is this shining city on the hill, and it is far, far, far from that. So now your plan is to move to South Africa permanently. So what made you decide, because you spent the majority of your time in Tanzania, but what made you decide, hey, Johannesburg or South Africa is where I want to plant my roots?
Yeah. So after spending that month there, while I was there, I actually met a financier, like financial advisor, because I was interested in like, okay, how do I just start a banking relationship? And we had like conversation. What was I doing at the time? I was working with a collective co-op of women coffee farmers that were looking to grow their coffee business and had some not so positive experiences. So they had cut back their crop. So I wanted to figure out how I could help these women grow their coffee business. And, I had some beverage experience, worked in the beverage industry for a while. And so I understood the consumption patterns of coffee drinking. That weren't necessarily a part of the Tanzanian culture, but they were a part of like the European Western culture. And when I went to South Africa, like they were definitely drinking coffee. Coffee shops were there, and a lot of the coffee they're consuming is African coffee. So we're talking, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually working with these coffee farmers. He's like, oh, well, why don't we set up a business? And he was also on the board of a couple of hotels, and he's like, we can white label the coffee and sell it to the hotels. And I was like, okay, you want to go into business together? He was like, yeah. So we started a business, the formalities of the business in South Africa. And I had really, coming from like the economic background, I really see the promise in intra-Africa trade and just Africa just being what is now, what is next, going into just this next revolution that we're seeing. And it just made sense. It felt great. Like I will admit, Johannesburg felt very familiar, kind of too familiar when I originally got there. Like it was a little bit of a culture shock coming from Tanzania. But when I went to Durban, I was like, oh, I love this. I love this. Okay. But being able to do both is definitely something that I see myself doing, spending a lot of time in Joburg, just because of I still have that drive, right? Like I still have that drive to do good, to help people and to grow a business that my girls can, profit from and work and be a part of,
Yeah.
but not with the conditions that it would look like in a fully Western society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Durban. So what was it about Durban? Because you mentioned like, oh, you felt a certain way when you got to Durban.
I
What was the
loved
difference?
it. Like I love the water. So just the
Yeah.
ocean and the rolling hills in Durban, a little bit more slow pace
Mm.
from Joburg, but still very African. Like, you know, you can go not too far from the tourist area, which where I was,
Mm.
and have an African experience in the
Okay.
township and, you know, and like even rural life. Like I wouldn't call it village, maybe some would, but I
Mhm.
felt like it was a little bit more rural because I mean mansions on mansions, mega mansions. So
Yeah.
that to me isn't village life. Maybe they consider it village life, but like, you know, just fertile land and acreage. Like I never, growing up in the city, never thought I would be like, I want acreage. No, now I want acreage. I want goats and cows and chickens and
Mm.
okra and all that, like on my land. So yeah, I mean, I just loved it. It was beautiful. It was chill. And same, like really good people. I will say it was interesting because I had an experience at like one of the beaches with uh a white woman, and she was so nice. And I was just
Mhm.
like coming off of, you know, just this trauma that we
Yeah.
had in dealing with white people in America. And she was so nice. She was so welcoming. She asked me what I did. I was like, oh, I actually just started a coffee business. She's like, my husband wants to get into coffee. Will you talk to him? And I still talk to him
Mhm.
till this day. Like he decided that he didn't want to go into coffee business, but he's like, when you come back, I want to make sure that, you know, you're set up. If you need help with the finding a school or a place, like I'll connect you. And it was just very much, it was different for me.
Mm.
And it was very, it was just like, you know, it was just a different experience. One of those things that made me sit back and have to be like, this is something I need to work on. I need to release that energy.
We're carrying around
Indeed.
that trauma of dealing with racism and white supremacy 24/7 in the United States. And maybe it does skew the way we interact with not non-American white folk. We assume that they're coming from the same place. That's why I think we were so surprised when we dealt with the Afrikaans cat named
Yeah.
Quartus.
Yeah.
He was our little tour guide on the safari, and he was very nice, you know. And he told us when the safari was over, like, if you ever need anything, like, we're family now. We spent this whole day together. You're moving to my country. If you ever need anything, reach out to me. I don't care if it's now or 5 years. And I just thought that was I can tell it really came from a sincere place.
Yeah.
And I would never expect that from white folk in the United States. Just I,
Ever. I'd be
if
like,
they
what you
say
want my
that,
number for?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm just skeptical, I'm thinking you're trying to set me up.
Right. You trying to track me or something? You trying to figure out what? No.
So we were supposed to have another guest on here, and I was going to throw the dating question to her because I know her to mess with her about Prince Akeem. But
You can throw it to me.
I'm about to throw it to you. So were you dating in South Africa? And if you did, what was was there any like cultural barriers, or was it kind of a smooth thing?
So I did. I went on like several dates in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had went from no dates to several dates.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was nice. It was really nice. I went on one date with he was from so one was Nigerian from the UK that was living in Eswatini and was just visiting Joburg to, like, you know, figure out if it was a place that he wanted to settle, but had already decided he had a house in Eswatini. And then Gabon. It was another gentleman from Gabon.
Okay.
And And then I got asked out by like a couple South Africans. They just didn't follow up. Like they just didn't follow through. So I ended up, going on dates with these gentlemen, and it was really nice. I mean, the differences I will say is they were both very intentional. Like, I like you. This is who I am. This is what I'm looking for. Like, what we doing?
Wow.
And so I also at that time was dating a gentleman in Tanzania. But like what I learned from that experience, because he had called me when I was on a date. And so I told him, I was like, oh, I went out with someone that I met. And he was like, what? You did what? You did what? With who? Wait, what? Like, so I learned
red flags.
That dating,
red flag.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's how I took it. But casual dating doesn't seem to be a thing culturally. Like, so I get that concept of dating with intent, but yeah, you're not going out on a date with this guy. And granted, this is dating, so there is no physical experience exchange happening. But I guess that is just not a thing, like culturally.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing that I really noticed. But I will say again, like just being in that feminine energy was something that I recognized I was able to do. Where I really was able to like let them lead and let them call and let them follow up, and like looking for that versus like, I'm out here, I'm trying to be in these streets. Like, what you doing? Like that wasn't I didn't have to tap into that energy. But yeah, like any guy that approached me was very very respectful, but also like, I really like you and I want to see you today or tomorrow. And I was like, okay, like that's nice. It was new. It was no games. It didn't feel like that. Now, I don't know if that was just because I'm a foreigner.
Yeah.
And that was the reception I was getting, but I had a blast dating in South Africa.
Good.
Nice.
Well,
so I have a question.
Yes,
so actually, when you move back, because you're planning to move back to South Africa, will your mother be joining you, or do you think she'll hang back in the States?
No, she won't be joining me.
She had her experience. She's like, that was nice.
She said she got Georgia on her mind.
I loved it. I think she did love it. I will say that for older people, that adjustment, recognizing I am not a tourist, I am attempting to be a resident. I'm attempting to fit in and be an immigrant. You cannot do the same things you've been doing. You just can't do it. Like, you have to adapt to the culture. You have to understand this is how these people do things if you're going to be a part of their culture. If not, if you want to be a tourist, you're going to be treated like a tourist, and all of those things that come with that may come towards you. And I think although she had a great time, she wanted to be her and do her in her comfortability, like, and that's fine, and I get it. But that comes with anybody who goes over there with those intentions will be met with consequences to those actions. I hate to say the consequence, but it's just like, you're gonna have to
reciprocation.
You're gonna have to release some things, right? Like,
Now you said your mom didn't go to South Africa though. She was only in Tanzania. So I don't know about your mom, but I'm thinking from my parents, which they dead set against. They not leaving New Orleans. They New Orleanians. We gonna die here. But I would think for them, at least from what I've seen in terms of the respect for elders in South Africa, right? Even the respect for teachers. My mom is a teacher. My father's a minister. I think just their titles alone would give them a certain a degree of respect besides their age. And I think it would be a much easier transition for them. It may be difficult because Johannesburg is like 10 times bigger than New Orleans. So, but in terms of all of the amenities and stuff, access to the stuff that they're used to. So do you think if your mom maybe visited South Africa, she would be like, oh, maybe I can do
I
this?
think if every Black person visited South Africa, they would have a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
But like going back to what I said is, you know, having to convince. So I decided since I've been back that I wanted to, and I wanted to do that. My purpose for starting my YouTube was to show Africa from a perspective, you know, of someone like me. And I, you know, had the things that you would think would make you content with living in this country, but that wasn't the case for me. But still, like that's not the majority of the viewership that I have. The majority of my family is South African,
Right.
continental Africans. And so having to convince people that you can be treated better, like there is a better option, is it's like there is a roadblock there, you know, like there's a roadblock for us to really conceptualize. It's like an abstract thought that we can be treated better than we are treated here. And, you know, I think that's
Blinders are
just
placed
it.
on it.
I think, yeah, I think there's so many people that would come to South Africa and love it, but they can't get past the roadblock of either the fear to try something new or to go into the unknown, or the abstract concept that there is a place where you have privilege and will be treated better. So,
and it's the strangest thing that they can't see it, and not any person specific, but it's like you're an economist, right? I said I'm talking to a medical doctor, a dentist, a sitting judge. Not only are they successful, you would think these people are highly intelligent, right? These are people who have terminal degrees, right? You would think that if they're saying no, there's something better, you would kind of, well, let me pay attention to what this educated person is saying, because he can't be a fool, right? He can't, you would think that they would have the credibility within their own circle. And I speak specifically of my own circle. You think that I would have the credibility, my wife would have the credibility, people who have known us 20 and 30 years who would say, I've never known them to be kind of, crazy people. They usually are pretty deliberate about the choices that they're making. They're pretty intelligent. I've never known them to be spontaneous, or whatever, or foolishly spontaneous. But, it's like all of the credential that you may have, all the credibility that you may have, up until the point where you say, I'm moving to Africa. When you say that, it's like, oh, that Negro's crazy. He lost his mind.
Right. What's going on with them? What they got going on over there?
It makes me think that many Black Americans really don't truly believe they have it that bad. I mean, deep down to the core, it's like, do you really believe it's that bad, or are we talking?
Man, listen, I work in the prisons, right? There's a difference between jail and prison. So when I go visit my clients in jail, that they're brand new in there, and jail is rough. Oh, jail is rough. They talking to you crazy, and the guards, the deputies are paid $7 an hour, so they're ready to fight as soon as they come. They're ready to beat you up as soon as they come. Prison is different. They live there. Angola State Prison, most of the people who work at the prison also live on the prison grounds. This is home. It's home to the prisoners, and it's home to those who work there. They have been there 10, 15, 20 years. They're comfortable. You see what I'm saying? They have work schedules. They get up in the morning, go to work. They have friends. They have work friends that they see. They have all these visitations. It's a different lifestyle. So once you've made prison comfortable, you can be there 40, 50 years.
You just explained institutional racism. That's
Oh,
just what it
yeah,
is. Like,
yeah.
and that's what we don't even know. We are
Mm,
we don't even know that that's exactly what it is. And
yeah.
so to your point, I mean, I have had lifetime friendships fall out, family
Mm.
that just
Mm,
won't talk to me. They think I'm crazy. What are you doing? My oldest daughter really wants to do boarding school.
mm,
And as you know, like that is just continent, like Africans, that's such like a cultural thing.
right.
Like
It's
it's
very normal.
actually so common. Some of the youngest kids are 5 years old, like that go to boarding school. And
Yeah,
from like in the US, I mean, only the elite send their
yeah.
children to boarding school. I mean, like,
Piney Woods. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you
Mhm.
can, that's hundreds of thousands a year for
yeah.
K through 12. And so my my daughter's godparents were like, oh, you know, people who send their children to boarding school don't care about their children, you know, but people, you send your child to school every day where they could get shot up at any moment, like
Right.
you care about yours, but I don't care about mine because I want to give her an international educational
Mm.
experience. It's going to
Right.
give her a leg up in this global economy that we're living in, you
Right.
know, and it, but again, like that's where I'm at, where I just don't even, because what I've learned is I cannot explain my perspective to you without inadvertently insulting you.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah. That's true. That's
Mhm.
true. Cause yeah, yeah. You know, I just, but a part of me, a part of what
It's
I
deep.
want is, you know, family is one thing. You know, the family's gonna be family. You can't choose your family. So my mom and dad, they may never come. My sister may never come. But I have friends who I consider family who are in similar positions. Negroes with 5,000 square foot houses. I'm calling them out. That's my best friend. And guess what? He African. he African. He's Eritrean. Negro with 5,000 people. I was in business with back in the day, I used to be a poet slash rapper. Don't tell nobody. But my partner, you know, these are people who I admire greatly, and they're doing very well in life. And I'm like, I'm trying to convince them because I want them to see, like, man, you need to come to South Africa. I'm not telling you to move. I want you to come and visit.
Come visit.
I want you to come and see it. And they'll be like, oh, no, I can't. I ain't got no money right now. And then you see them like flying to Atlanta for the Saints game. You know what I'm saying? You see them in Greece. Like,
Turn it up. Turn it up.
Greece.
Yeah.
Why you in Greece?
So it's the weirdest thing. It's like I just want. I think it's the love I have for them because I was like, I want you to see this. I want you to understand. Um,
Yeah.
you know, to quote the great philosophical musician Kanye West. Kanye West had a song where he said, "I wish I could give you this feeling. I wish I could get." It was a common song actually,
Yeah.
and that's what it is. I wish I could give you this feeling. When you come and you feel that freedom of just walking down the street and the erasure of your race and the erasure of all of the negative stigma that comes along with being a big old 240-pound black man in the United States, all that is erased in South Africa. I'm just brother aside, or I'm just nobody, which may be fine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just another person walking the street, and how freeing and liberating that is to have that feeling. I just want them to there. I want them to feel it. But you know, you give some Negroes some money, nice cars, they be like, well, no, I'm good. I can, man, this white man ain't that bad, bro.
Everybody can't get up off, you know, I've literally had friends be like, everybody can't get off the plantation like you know, like,
Mm.
and said that in a way that I'm like, did you just make a joke of being on the plantation? You know, and you are a highly educated,
Yeah.
like well-to-do, you know, and it's fear, you know, but it is this abstract concept that we can be treated better. Like we're just
Mm.
so content in this like cycle of dysfunction
Yeah.
and toxicity. And you know, for me, like my oldest daughter, she was going to a charter school, black principal, black teachers, you know, and I thought it was the best choice for her to like be removed from being one of only, which was my experience. And she went from being bullied in that school to then coming to an international school in Africa and being the popular girl who her skin was beautiful. My oldest daughter, she's brown skin, and you know, we don't have the same complexion, but her kids, you know, her friends would constantly call her out on that in a, you know, in a bullying way. But
colorism, yeah.
Tanzania, like her skin was beautiful, her body shape was beautiful, her, you know, her voice was beautiful. Like she went from being the bullied kid to the praised kid.
Wow.
And her, you know, all the billboards were showing people like her. And so just even being back in this short period of time, like that's the hardest part, is just seeing that shift happen where she's, you know, she's comfortable, but it's just not the same. We have to teach our children to be docile in certain spaces for their own benefit.
Right.
Like, they cannot be in their fullness. They just, so that alone is like, I don't want to do that to them. Like, I don't want them to get to that place where they're doing that for other people in relationships and professional settings and whatever. And again, it's like, you can't explain that to your friend without putting them in a position to self-reflect and be like, well, damn, my child, I have accepted this.
It's okay to be second class as long as we could drive a Bentley doing it. That's what I'm
Amazon deliveries every day.
Yeah. But I think
you're so Whole Foods and have my, you know, latte grande.
I think you're so right, because our sons now go to a French school, and we found, so it's this bargain that we had to make. We find it important that we want them to have a second language. We are New Orleanians, so French is part of the heritage here. So we wanted them to have that. However, you know, my oldest is, you know, he's 11, so he's starting to get into girls, you know, whatever have you. So the first girl that he actually told us about was like this, you know, she wasn't one of us, right? Like, but you know, because that happens, and then anyway, I don't want that to affect his self-esteem, his image of what a Black woman is, and, and what beauty is about, you know. And I'm like, I want to get you to a place where you're in the super majority, where you, number one, don't have to worry about, because later on you'll find that that same little girl that you like will maybe start liking other people, because you're going to want a man that's going to reflect her dad. That's only natural. You see what I'm saying? And then the standards of beauty here for men, right? What's handsome for men is not, you know, black people. So I wanted to get him to a place where that, you know, where he can develop this self-esteem, or at least his self-esteem is not being attacked, because there's a different, you know, standard of beauty. And then there's little Black and brown girls that he can, you know, get to know, or whatever have you. I'm not trying to turn him into a womanizer, but I want him to recognize, you know, this other form of beauty. You know, it's only so much that we can do when you're living in a society that constantly bombards them with, this is pretty, this is what beauty looks like, blah, 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 blah. You know, and we at home, we super Black in this house. We super duper Black. I mean, and then we hood Black. I mean, my wife now, but you know, I mean, I can't help it. What I'm saying is, I'm a New Orleanian. We don't come from that pretentious stuff. Our city is poor. So the stuff that I'm just a regular person. So, and a regular Black person, I'm comfortable around very, very regular Black people, you know? And so I want him to, I forgot what I was going with. I forgot. Oh, well. Dating, and then it was dating. I wanted to get some Black girls. I want some Black girls. I don't hate on anybody for dating interracially. That's fine if that's what you're into. But I do want him to know the beauty of Black women. That's what I want.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that I've noticed, I have friends that have gone over to the continent as couples that have given a lot of the credit to the stability of their relationship, the improvement of their relationship to being on the continent, just because of the pressures that exist in being in relationship, over here in the US. Like I'm not with my girl's dad, and a lot of that is just value shift and and what it looked like for me when I became a mom, and what it looked like for him, and what society was telling him he needed to prioritize as a father. And it's not necessarily family centeredness. And so that's what I want for myself, but also for my girls, not chasing after this fallacy of success that is attached to a dollar, has been created by somebody who not only doesn't look like us, but doesn't value us and isn't interested in preserving our stability. So I don't think I don't think it's a problem to be like, I want to preserve my heritage, my family, and give options to my children that are healthy options. And I'm not saying there are no healthy young girls in his class, but it's just and it's hard to explain to many people that, especially, that don't live in this culture or aren't paying attention. But it's definitely not mainstream to show Black families in a positive way, and to show the amplification of that as the healthiest option.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
true.
Well, we have been on for about an hour. I don't want to hold you all night because y'all know I talk a lot. So I'll give you the last words and we can wrap it up. You can tell them, make sure I'll in the description, I will definitely put in your YouTube channel, but you shout out your YouTube channel and whatever you want in.
Yeah, well, this has been fun. I hope it wasn't too, touchy. But I hope, we were able to have this is just awesome. Like, I love being able to have these conversations because they aren't as frequent being in the US without being offensive, so I just love having these intellectual meetups. I hope we can do this again. Assad and Adrian, thank you so much for having me on your channel. Again, my channel is Ashley in Africa, and I talk about living, moving, and doing business on the continent as I prepare for our relocation back to the continent, to South Africa, to the lovely, illustrious country of South Africa. We can't wait. And we can't wait to hook up and meet with y'all and connect the kids and all of that.
Definitely. When are you going back?
Oh, that's part 2.
Got it.
I got you.
Hopefully soon.
I got you.
Yes.
I said a hard date. I said we're going back in June. I don't care how it works. And she was like, "We're gonna sell the house. We can burn it down. Get insurance money."
We're we'll have that chat over coffee. I can't wait to share it.
Definitely. Well, it was an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. And what Russell Simmons you say? Thank you for coming out. God bless. Good night.
Thank you, Ashley. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Talk soon.
Bye.